standing in the field of Verdun in northeastern France, the scene of one of the most devastating and senseless battles in the devastating and senseless First World War. The Battle of Verdun was fought between the Germans and the French from the 21st of February to the 18th of December 1916. It's the longest battle in history and one of the costliest in terms of human life. Using machine guns, barbed wire, trenches, and massed artillery, the two armies flung themselves at each other until 2/3 of 1,000,000 men had fallen. Perhaps the worst thing is that the battle solved nothing in military terms. The war would continue for 2 more years until Europe fell into an exhausted and dissatisfied peace.
It all began in Bosnia, of all places. The Austrians had recently annexed the small Balkan nation, angering neighboring Serbia, who wanted the territory for itself. On a fateful day in June, the heir to the Austrian throne, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, and his wife were visiting the Bosnian capital of Sarajevo. A young Serbian terrorist named Gavrilo Princip and his fellow conspirators took up their position along the Upper Quay. Initially, it seemed as if the job had been botched. A conspirator named Korbrinovic threw a bomb at the Archduke's car, but it bounced off the folded roof before it exploded, injuring 2 people in the vehicle and about 20 bystanders. The chauffeur wanted to speed off to safety, but the Archduke insisted on staying behind to see how the injured were faring, and then proceeded as scheduled to the town hall. When he finished his meeting, he insisted again on visiting the survivors. When the nervous chauffeur took a wrong turn on the way to the hospital, Princip, who was buying himself some lunch, suddenly found himself face to face with his target. According to Princip, his vision blurred, and he was filled with a peculiar feeling of excitement. He aimed his gun and fired, fatally wounding both the Archduke, whom he shot through the throat, and his pregnant wife, the Archduchess Sophie, whom he hit in the stomach by accident. It was the royal couple's 14th anniversary. The Austrian police quickly connected Princip with a faction within the Serbian government itself, and issued an ultimatum demanding that all conspirators be turned over to the Austrian government immediately. When Serbia refused, Austria declared war. This activated a precarious system of alliances. Russia, guaranteeing Serbia's sovereignty, declared war on Austria. Germany declared war on Russia, and France, Russia's dedicated ally, declared war on Germany. When Germany decided to bypass French defenses along the Franco-German border by going through Belgium, Great Britain declared war to defend Belgium's proclamation of neutrality. Thus the world was plunged into a war, the like of which had never before been seen. Before the conflict was over, most of the world, including the United States, was involved in some way or the other. Whatever the cause, the war was one of the greatest catastrophes in human history. After an initial plunge into France through Belgium, the French managed to halt the German advance outside Paris. Then followed 4 years of trench warfare, with little recognizable loss or gain on either side, except for human lives. The technology of the time gave advantage to the defender, with barbed wire, machine guns, and poison gas among the war's horrors. In the 4 years of war, an entire generation of French, British, and German men was decimated. Finally, Germany, overwhelmed by superior force, collapsed. An armistice was signed at 11:00 a.m. on November 11th, the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. Over the next year, a peace conference was held and finally ratified in Versailles, chosen by the French as the best place to take revenge upon the Germans, who had imposed their victory there in 1871. The terms of the peace were frankly punitive, making it impossible for the Germans to recover economically from the war, and sowing the seeds of future discontent that before a generation had passed would yield the bitterest fruit of all. In 1939, Germany once again would go to war, this time led by Adolf Hitler and his Nazis, who were determined not only to avenge the Versailles Peace, but to impose a new German order over Europe. Hitler blamed Jews and communists for Germany's woes, and he was determined not only to conquer a vast empire for Germany, but to exterminate the Jews and put most non-Germans under the yoke of serfdom. Soon he was joined by Italy and Japan, who, like Germany, were ruled by militaristic fascist dictatorships. The world was plunged into a second world war, whose horrors dwarfed those of the first. And as before, at the war's end, the world found itself an even more dangerous place, with new revolutions and rivalries and apocalyptic new weapons to threaten the very destruction of civilization. The terrible wars of the 20th century had a powerful impact on the art and culture of the time. Since the Renaissance, art had been basically an optimistic endeavor, with its primary aim being the adornment of human life with beautiful things. But after the horrors of war and genocide, artists, writers, and composers began to doubt that beauty had any relevance to modern society. As the German philosopher Theodor Adorno said, "To write poetry after Auschwitz is barbaric." Instead, art became a medium that in many cases explored the seamy side of civilization, with the intent to shock rather than console. As you will see, this has sometimes had the effect of distancing the public from the fine arts and depriving humans of a source of beauty at a time when they have needed it the most. And yet, beauty, along with her companions truth and goodness, remain in 20th century art in abundance. Sometimes it's hard to see it, and as always, it takes study and contemplation to tease out meaning from these difficult works. In this lesson, we will look at some of the great movements in 20th century art and try to get into the minds of the artists and come to know their intentions. As we do, I'm certain you will find hidden treasures from these troubled times that will enrich your life in unexpected ways.